Thanks for clicking on the video. Like, subscribe, and share if you find this useful or interesting. I'm actually redoing this video because I had already posted this episode and the next one, but while I was recording, I made a mistake and then I was confused for a while finding the mistake. And even though I thought it was pretty funny that I made a mistake and I was complaining about other parts of FreeCAD, I realized after posting it that it's not very respectful of people's time to make them watch me fix a silly mistake. So I'm recording it again, and I'm going to try to be as straight to the point as possible. Alright, so this is what we did last time in the episode called Final Setup, and this is true. This is the pattern of the final setup. But in the picture on the video, for the last video, I was showing this, and it has more stuff. So it has more view sets to see the different stages that we go through to make this object. And it also has CAD objects. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about how do you go from this business with the surfaces to objects that you can use in the rest of FreeCAD or export to other programs like SolidWorks, CATIA, Creo Parametric, or whatever you want, right? How do we go from this to a more typical CAD workflow? Because that's what we want to do. We want to do what we need to do in Silk and then get out. All right, let's get to it. Okay, so if you remember, in the last episode, we set up the file like this. There is a workspace, which is right here, where these objects are, and here we can show the actual model objects when we want to look at it. But we also have copies that are off to the side so that we can see all the steps, and we can see this all at the same time. So we work in here mostly, although sometimes we can edit things directly from the copies, but mostly we work in here and we just use this as a visual indicator of the consequences of our actions, so that when we work here, we only have to show what we intend to work on. And what we intend to work on right now is the final surfaces. We don't need the layouts, we don't need the control sketches. We're going to take all of these, all of this right here, and we're going to package it so that we can work on it in Part Workbench, in the Curves Workbench, and the PartDesign Workbench. Now, I don't have a ton of experience with the PartDesign Workbench, but I know a path to get this model into the PartDesign Workbench where you can keep working on it. And it actually all of this starts with the Curves Workbench. I'm loading it right now. It's a fairly sizable workbench, so it takes a moment to load, but after that, it typically reacts very quickly, and here it is. So you need the Curves Workbench installed to do what I'm going to do right now, and you should definitely have the Curve Workbench and use it as much as possible. As a matter of fact, you should only use Silk for things that you cannot do somewhere else. If you can do what you need to do in the Curves Workbench, do that instead. If you can get what you need done in the FreeCAD's official Surface Workbench, use that instead. Only use Silk if you really have to. And I had to do this. I don't know of a way to do this outside of Silk. So now I'm done. Let's say I'm done with Silk. I just want to go back to doing regular CAD type of stuff. Okay, so I'm going to select all my surfaces. Remember, a single shift select, control click to unselect the folders. And by the way, I will try to write a tool as soon as possible where you click a top level folder right here and have it select all the actual objects inside, but not the folders. So that way you'll be able to either click here and click on a button, or click here and right click and select contents. Because I see now that it would be extremely helpful for the workflow that I'm showing. Okay, so I've selected all my surfaces. This is what I want to take out of Silk and into PartDesign, let's say. I use the Curves Workbench to do this, and I use a tool called Parametric Solid. I also have it in a shortcut bar here for myself so that I always have access to it, but if you don't have a shortcut bar set up like this, use it from the Curves Workbench. I hit Parametric Solid, and it created a new object, and it hid all the objects that I had selected. Now, very quickly, I'm going to show you that I had made some mistakes in here. I had made too many surfaces. When I create the shell, the solid object from Curves Workbench, let's fix that up real quick. It's from Curves Workbench. I'm marking it as such so that people can understand a little bit better where it came from and that I didn't make it with silk. And it's actually a shell. It's not a solid. It tries to make a solid, but if it can't, it makes a shell. And if you look under data, it says shape status shell. It tells you what it was able to accomplish. So it's a really nice tool. But it did not fix the mistake that I had made. And the mistake I had made is I had a couple of faces here where I created the faces twice. So right now they're sitting on top of each other. Let me show you why that's a problem. Next, we're going to Part Workbench. If you just wanted to work in surface, you could stay with the surface. But if you want to go to part design, first you have to make a solid. And the typical way you would do this from a silk surface, if you haven't closed the surface, if it's an open surface, the simplest thing you can do is to make an offset. So I'm in the Parts Workbench. I go to a drop down, I hit 3D offset. I also have a shortcut for that for myself here. In this offset, you'll see that right now with 1 millimeter offset, it says, hey, there's a problem. It doesn't like it. But as a matter of fact, if I put in 10, the error goes away. And it seems to have created the surface. But if I choose the option fill offset, the error comes back. Okay? And if I look a little bit closer here, I can already see a problem. You see this right here? There's this weird doubled up surface in here. There's a problem here. Oh, and look. And there's a problem there. It turns out that this weird behavior is caused by the fact that I had left double surfaces here. I created it twice. And it passed to the shell, and it was not visible until I did the offset. So I'm just going to cancel this offset. I'm going to hide this for now. And, okay, I'm going to show all my final surfaces, actually. Hide them all, go to Restored Surfaces, show them all. Is this where I have a double? Well, there's 8 surfaces total here, and that's what I expected. And I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 distinct surfaces here. So that's not where the issue is. I'm going to leave them on. Then I turn on these guys. How many surfaces do I expect here? 4 on the bottom loop, 4 in the middle, and 4 on the top loop. So there should be 12. I select all of these. I go into selection view. It says, hey, you have 13 things selected. It's hard to read it because it goes off the screen, but it says 13. So let's find the doubled up object. If I just click this, first of all, let's make it big so we can all see what's happening. Center the view, zoom in a little bit, and let's see. I select this one. Okay, I see the face. I select the next one. I can't see it. This is going to turn out to be the problem face. The next one, I can see it. It highlights. The next one, I can see it. It highlights. If I just use my down arrow, I can see that every face highlights when I move down. The only one that didn't do it was the second one. It turns out if I hide the first one, now I can see the second one underneath it. So these are doubles. Remember I said in general, you don't want to delete things. You want to fix them because you don't want to lose the downstream work. But in this case, there's nothing to fix. There's just one too many. It should have never been created, right? So there's nothing to fix. I can delete either of them. Doesn't matter in this case because nothing else depends on them except this object that I just created, right? And I'm just going to randomly decide to delete the first one. Oh, there was something else. There's a link that's going to break. Okay, I'm going to hit yes. And right here, it opens up the folder with the links and says, hey, this link is broken. I'm also going to delete the link because extra surface, extra link. Okay, and what about the solid? The solid still seems to be fine. So I deleted a face, but it's still a shell. Okay. There was another one that was a problem. One of the big ones. It's one of these guys. I look in here. How many should there be? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5. This one. This one is distinct. Oh, this one right here. I can see it's going to be right on top. This is an extra surface. See how it's not showing? If I hide the previous one, I see this one. Okay, and this time I'm just going to decide to delete this one. And again, it's going to give me a message about a broken link and an issue with the solid. So the link is in fact broken because the surface is gone. I'm going to delete the link. And now this shell here. Well, this shell should now have the right number of faces in it. Maybe I ought to just delete it and recreate it, but we'll just try offsetting to find out. So I've selected it and 3D offset. It doesn't complain right off the bat, so it's happy with 1 millimeter. Is it happy with 10 millimeters? No error. Will it fill? Yes, it filled. What filling means, it means creating the surface that joins the two offset surfaces together, both top and bottom. And this looks pretty good. I mean, we're getting visual artifacts of the original surfaces underneath here, but I will just hide them, and now we're fine. So it seems that just deleting the extra surfaces did not impact the curves workbench solid / shell in a negative way, so that's great. There's one more thing though, is that right now I have a positive offset, and that means it's offsetting outside. I don't want that because the original surface is always a higher quality than the offset surface. It's just the way NURBS work. Offset surfaces are always an approximation of offsetting. It's never exact. So since the initial surface is higher quality, that's what I want to show on my that's what I want to see on the outside, right? Because if I look at this object, I'm going to be looking at it from the outside. And so I want that to have the best surface, so I use a negative offset. And now we see an issue that is a design issue. Look what's happening here. My blend here was so tight that with 10 millimeters, it's already starting to get weird here. See how this is really extreme. What happens if I do it too much, if I say minus 20 millimeters offset inside? Now this surface is not valid anymore. But offset doesn't warn us, unfortunately. So I'm going to hit OK. And as far as offset is concerned, it's created a good offset. But for art, that's not the case. So we need to fix this because this is a design issue, not a CAD technology issue. This radius is too small for offsetting by 20 millimeters inward. So I can either make a smaller offset right here, or I can adjust this blend right here. I'm going to turn my view sets back on. And if you remember from the last episode, the very last thing I did after setting up these views is I showed you how cool it was that I could change this point, both the view set and the real object in the workspace, directly from the link by editing this value from 0.4 to down to 0.1. Well, let's put it back to 0.4. Look at that. The blend is much more balanced again. This updated and everything updated, including the curves workbench quilt that joined all our surfaces and the offset surface. So this is great. This is the beginnings of a fully parametric workflow to get out of Silk. Nice. All right. So now that we have this offset, we can keep working in the parts workbench. You don't have to do anything special. But I believe that a lot of people will want to go to the PartDesign workbench. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, I'm going to backtrack for a second, and this is only due to a personal preference. You see how, I'm going to delete this offset. I created the curves workbench object right here, and because it was outside of a folder, when I applied the offset absorbed it. I'm going to accept the 1 millimeter value here because I don't care. I'm going to redo it. Okay, it absorbed it, and that's probably what a lot of people will like. The shell was absorbed by the offset. I personally don't want that. I don't want it to be absorbed because I want to be able to see them individually and find them individually without having to open too many things. So all I have to do to get my way is I'm going to create the CAD folder. And I put this in my patch, and whatever my main design, whatever my overall design is, I put the CAD folder in it. and it represents the end of the silk work and what we do after. I'm going to put the curved workbench shell in here. And because I've put it in a folder, the part workbench is something I really like. When I create my offset, which is -20, with the fill offset activated to get the caps here, very important. This is what I screwed up and why I have to redo this video. I forgot to click this button one time. Oh man, I was so lost. But here's the good part. Here's what I like about what part workbench just did. It created the offset separately. You can still open it and find this object inside, but it allowed me to keep this separately. I like to see them separately. So now I'm going to put in the folder, and it doesn't reconfigure anything. It's allowing me to get what I want. I want to see these objects in a row like you would in a parametric design tree, one operation after the other. If you want to see what's inside, you can open it. Okay, so you could keep working in the part workbench, and actually I'm going to show you there's some things that work a little bit better than the part design workbench in just the part workbench. But I said I was going to show you how to do part design, so let's do it. Part design. I think I could create just a body, but for the full workflow, I think you're supposed to have a part. So I'm going to create a part from the part design workbench. Inside, I'm going to create a body. And this is all I need, and what I'm going to show now is going to work. But I think it's going to be weird, and the way it works is not really the way I wish it worked, but I'm glad that it works at all. This is really important. I design silk the way I want. I organize it the way I want, and you can too. As a matter of fact, you have to. Part design is very specific and does some things that surprise me. So let me show you what's going on. I want this offset to be the basic starting shape in this body. So I'm going to drag it into the body. Okay, it took it out of my folder. Well, that's fine because I said put it in the body. Okay. But it's not here. The offset is not here. There's a base feature here. And this base feature is what I asked for. See, this is showing, but I'm going to hide it. Okay. So now the only thing that's visible, I'm going to hide everything else, like literally everything else. The only thing that's visible is this base feature, and it is the offset, so I should be happy, right? Well, for some reason, the offset is sitting right here in the model tree. So it was both moved out of this folder, but not put into the body. I find this a little bit surprising, but it's workable, right? We can work with this, but it's really weird. And actually, this is going to let me do what I really wanted, which was I wanted to keep my object in my folder. Thank you very much. So I got what I wanted. I can't really complain, but it was a little bit weird how this didn't go in here, but left my folder and sat in the main tree. It's a little bit weird, but we got it done. And now that we have this here, we can do good stuff. I'm going to put a fillet on the top. And remember, the offset is width 20, so I can fill it up to 19, no problem. Great. And then on the bottom, and notice that it selected the entire loop automatically. That's nice, as long as it keeps working. And then on the bottom here, I'm going to chamfer 15. Nice. So it worked. So the silk surfaces grouped together by the curves workbench and offset by the part workbench work and the part design workbench. So now you can do whatever you want. But be really careful. The part design workbench here, even though I did these operations really quickly, in my previous testing had a really hard time updating. So let me show you what I mean. If I go to my layouts here, and so I grab the top layout, and I go right here, and in placement it was up at 1000, I believe. Let me go to 2000, and give it a moment to try to update. Let's see what happens. Oh, look. My base feature is not complaining, but this chamfer is busted. No, this fillet is busted, but it says the chamfer is okay, but it didn't adjust in height. What if I look at my view sets? my view sets adjusted to the new height just fine. So PartDesign took my object and was able to work on it, but what happens after is fragile. So I'm going to delete the chamfer, still doesn't update. I'm going to delete the fillet, and there you go, now it updates. So it's not a problem of getting your thing into PartDesign. The problem is making sure that you don't need to edit this anymore, which kind of breaks the point. At that point, you might as well just make a step file from this and take it somewhere else. So I will leave for you to explore what works and what doesn't work in terms of what you can do with PartDesign and still be able to update the original object. I can't make any promises on this side. So I'm going to stop the PartDesign thing right now, but I will show you that this offset that we created in Part before we gave it to PartDesign, has at least some advantages, for example, with the chamfer. Oh, look, okay, even though I don't have a body or anything, I'm still in PartDesign, so it expects those things. I'm going to go back to Part. Make sure that the PartDesign stuff is gone from task. Good, okay. So nevertheless, I've shown you a bridge to get into PartDesign. What happens into PartDesign after that, unfortunately, I have no control over. If there's any way I can improve Silk to help PartDesign, I would probably try to do that, but I can't make any promises on that. It's not really my deal. In the Part workbench, if I make the chamfer, it doesn't auto-select the loop for me. I have to select my edges one at a time. But notice I don't have to do Shift or Control or anything. This is a special selection context, and you can just select all your edges. And then here we're going to give it 15. Hit OK. It made it. OK, no problem. What about adjusting the overall size? Will it let me do that? I'm going to go back down to 1000. It's updating. Hey, look. Part is able to use chamfer and to track my changes. That's 1 point for Part against PartDesign as far as working with this. What about the fillet? I select this edge. I select the Part Workbench fillet tool. Click around the loop on the outside. And I'm going to give it a fillet of 19 because that's what I was doing before, so I want to be fair. Okay, it filleted, but sure. But PartDesign also filleted just fine. That was not the issue. The issue is what happens when I move the thing. Well, first of all, let's see something. What if I move the top now? First, I'm going to move the top, and if that works, I'm also going to move the bottom. I want to see how little or how much it takes to break the fillet. If I update the top, my chamfer is still fine, and my fillet is still fine. No errors. Okay, so that's another point for Part, and as opposed to PartDesign, in terms of being able to work on this thing and have it update. But now let's be completely fair. I've seen Part fail to update the fillet, so I'm going to make that happen now. And the way I got that to happen now last time was by moving the bottom section, and this angle I'm going to change to 20. It's thinking about it. Holy crap, this time it worked. It rotated completely, and the Part workbench did not lose track of where that fillet was. Maybe the fact that it failed last time was because I had done an unintentional mistake. Maybe Part really is much stronger than PartDesign. But if that's the case, there's probably a way to tweak it so that PartDesign understands what we're doing. I don't know. Things like this breaking is why I don't spend that much time in PartDesign. But I did show you how to get a bridge. So why would you go to PartDesign instead of Part Workbench, instead of just doing everything in Part Workbench? Well, a lot of people don't, and they stay in Part Workbench. But there are tools available in PartDesign that are not available here. And in general, I believe that PartDesign is more parametric. So if you're really done with this and everything you need to do afterward can be done without changing the shape, then the bridge to PartDesign I showed you is perfectly valid. But be aware, once you go to PartDesign, there's a good chance editing this model will break things. Now, the good side is it's pretty fast to do things in PartDesign and very difficult to do things in Silk. So now that you're able to update Silk very easily, it's not a bad trade-off to say, I don't care if PartDesign breaks, I'll just remodel my things. I'll just reattach my sketches, recreate the features, and at least I'll benefit from being able to edit this shape in Silk. That's up to you. All right, I'm going to save the file here and end the session, and we'll pick up next time, and we will make more of all these views, and so that we can see what's really going on in this design, because this already has some issues, some of which I flagged when we started, but we need to start doing some real design with this thing and examining the quality of the surfaces we've made. So I'll catch you next time.